Rapid pace out here early in the second. LeVert, hey, knocks it down. Rondo's on the run. Stops. Hits Love fire. Cavs reset with a fresh 14. Under 3 to go in the half. Garland works on Holiday. Lost it for a moment. Shovels to Mobley. Garland, step back three, drew a foul, knocks it down.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening live to episode number 25 of the All Things Cleveland Cavaliers podcast. This is our regular season finale, the last week of the NBA regular season. As always, I'm your host, Brendan Lewis. One time, my esteemed co-host, Joey Schneider.
We lost to Orlando. Move on. I don't have much more to say, Brandon. You know, we are very lucky that we had Rafa on last week, and what an incredible guest that he was. Love Rafa to death. Hope he comes on the podcast again. We lost to Orlando last night. I mean, I don't know what else you can say. We're fighting for our lives in this thing, and we lose to Orlando. And yes, I know Mobley's out and I know Allen's out, but we lost to Orlando. It seems like we can't win these games. We're supposed, like, podcast number one, you know, for those of you who have not listened to our first podcast, let me just set the stage. A very, very, very new tag team duo, Brandon Lewis, Joey Schneider, kind of getting into the swing of things. First time that we're really, you know, we're kind of get to, you know, ebb and flow and see what's going on. And Brandon says something to me, and it was just like one of the perfect analogies. It was a third of the games you got to win, that you're supposed to win, you have to win. Third of the games, you know, you're gonna lose, and that's just part of the game. And there's a third of the games in there that is kind of a gray area, and you got to go out and grab them. Well, we're losing the games that we should win, Brandon. We're losing the games that are in the gray area, and we're losing the games that we should lose. This team, I don't know what it is, but not that long ago, we were talking about how the Cavs were one game out of first place. And now we have to talk about the play-in tournament, and should they tank? Should they go for that 8th seed to try and play Charlotte? Should they win and pray that Brooklyn falls? Or, I mean, I'm scared of Atlanta too. This is mind-blowing to me that this is where we're at after almost the entire season of praising the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I get it. There were injuries. You know, things happen. But my God, what the hell, man? To quote the great Vince Lombardi, what the hell's going on out there? All right, I'm sorry. That was my very early rant.
You know, something in my head before the game last night told me they were not going to win the game. And I don't know what it was. I kind of felt like the Knicks game the Saturday before was like the climax, kind of last gasp effort of the season. Because I do think now we're starting to see that, listen, without Jared Allen and without Evan Mobley, and as well as Lauri Markkanen played last night, and as well as Moses Brown has been subbing in, he has been, you know, a godsend pretty much to be able to start and be as productive as he has been with those guys out. Fact of the matter is, those guys, and specifically Moses for JA, are not JA. And you're right, there's something going on with this team. And the Cavs are in a very interesting situation in my eyes. And you kind of detailed it a little bit. We know, obviously, the Cavs are going to be in the play-in tournament. And the question is, you know, what seed do you want to be? And at this point, do we even want them to even win the play-in tournament? Because there is a very interesting factor here, because, and I understand, obviously, playoff experience is important. We got to get these guys at some point playoff experience. But if for some reason this team does not make the play-in tournament, we do get back our lottery protected pick if we do not make one of those top 8 seeds at the end of the play-in tournament that we got for the Karis LeVert trade. And, the Cavs, I believe, do need an addition on the wing, whether it's you go out and you get somebody in the draft or whether you go swing big and get somebody. I'm not sure what it is, but I think this team does need another piece, and potentially that lottery pick could be of value. Now, again, what's more valuable, lottery pick or the playoff experience? You could certainly argue playoff experience. However, and as I've detailed this out to you, depending on who we play, like historically in the NBA, your bottom seeds are not very good playoff teams. They're either out in the first round. You don't have a team that, a 6, 7, or 8 seed go in the second round or go to the conference finals. But I think it also depends on who the Cavs are going to get back, because if the Cavs do have Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, who knows with J.A.'s situation, this team is still legitimate. I don't feel like that they're a quote-unquote 7 seed. I feel like they're more of like a 4 or 5 seed in a 7-seeded spot. So to me, it's just more of the unknowns. And right now we're kind of just going through the stage of like, okay, whoever we have out there, just go out there and try your best. And unfortunately, the loss last night happened, but I'm not too upset over it because I don't know. I saw it coming.
Yeah, I didn't really see it coming. I thought that they were definitely going to beat Orlando, and then Mo Bamba turned into Steph Curry for the first quarter, and for some reason we couldn't get back in the game. So before we started this podcast, I said there's something that's been on my mind that I've been thinking about lately, and this is what that was. I don't think I realized how fragile this team was if Jarrett Allen were to get hurt. I think Jarrett Allen means more to this team than anybody possibly knew. He was the constant in the middle. That's why he shot a very high field goal percentage, blocking shots, altering shots, being a team leader. First time All-Star this year, and everyone was rooting for him to get in because they all knew what we knew, which is he is the heart and soul of this team. As soon as he went out, this team seems like they just didn't have it, or they don't have an answer to replace him. Even when Evan Mobley was healthy, and Evan Mobley was putting up some big numbers when Allen was out, he was doing the best he could to try and replace Allen. But you can't replace Jared Allen right now, especially since Mobley is, he's kind of a tweener. He's not. He can pretty much play the 3 down to, at 7 feet tall, can play the 3 down to the center position, but I wouldn't call him a true center. He's not. He doesn't have his NBA body. He's a rookie. He's learning. But this team is super, super fragile. You take that piece away, especially Jarrett Allen, and it's like they don't know what their identity is now. Without knowing if he's going to be back before the playoffs or the play-in or anything, I can't speculate anything. If you were to tell me right now Jared Allen is out, excuse me, there it is. There was the one for every podcast. If you tell me that Jared Allen is out for the rest of the season, or at least through the play-in, I'm telling you right now, I would not bet on the Cavs to make the play-in, and that's not because I don't like the team. I love the team. I'm a diehard Cavs fan through and through, but Jared Allen brings something to this team. I maybe it's some people might call it the it factor, whatever it may be. He makes this team better. He makes the players around him better because they know that they can look behind him and there's Jarrett Allen defending the rim, that he's going to get out and run in transition, that he's going to be a high percentage shooter. This team is fragile. And as you said, do we need another player? The answer is yes and no. And I'm going to tell you why. The reason is because we have another player with Colin Sexton. And I know that me and you talked about trading Sexton a lot, and that's because there's value to Colin Sexton. He's a great player. Now, if the Cavs can somehow get him on a one year prove it deal, kind of maybe, that's something I would think about. Because his offensive production, and especially like I said, we've said before, we had a very small sample size of Colin Sexton in the beginning part of the season. I think we had him for 11 games?
About, yep.
Yeah, and he was in 11 games had, was head, just head and shoulders above what he had done in previous years. He was being a team player. His defense was, much improved. So does that lottery pick matter? Maybe if you got lucky and it was, you're 15. If you have that 15th lottery pick, you have a 0.5% chance of hitting the top pick. Very low chance. So if it turns into number 1, okay, great. Yeah, it's worth it. But me personally, I think the playoff experience is more crucial now because this team is a playoff team. This team is only going to get better with time. The oldest starter when the season started was 24 years old, which means that oldest starter next year is going to be 25, unless Jimmy Bickerstaff starts Karis LeVert, who, by the way, has been playing very well in losing games. But, what are you going to do about that? I think the playoff experience is more important, but I don't know if they're going to really have a choice if Jared Allen and Evan Mobley aren't playing. So that's my 2 cents. But this team is they're fragile. They really are, and they've shown it. We've won, I think, 1 out of the last 7 or 8 games, and I don't know what's going to happen. Then that's the scary part. We don't know if Allen's gonna be back. We don't know if Mobley's gonna be back. And if they're not, then you might as well just say, hello to that lottery pick.
Well, as Joey had mentioned, if you go back and listen to episode number 1 of the podcast, the first ever podcast we did together, and we were also, getting to know each other a little bit, getting to know each other's styles, each other's thoughts. I had said on that podcast, and Joey had asked me the question. He had said, if the Cavs are a couple games away from being out of the playoffs or going into the lottery, would you tank? And my exact answer was yes. And I don't think that we're going to need to talk about that situation because I had thought the Cavs were going to be in way deep into the lottery already, potentially a top 5 pick. Yet, here we are, and I feel like the exact situation has come up, where the Cavs we know are going to be in the play-in tournament. And again, it depends on who we play. And we have talked about here a certain amount of times. We certainly do not want to match up against Brooklyn. It looks like Atlanta, Charlotte, a possibility. Do they try to manipulate the last couple of games to get the best possible matchup? I have no idea. But, it's such a complicated aspect because I said I thought last night, I said, if you were to tell me that you get both Mobley and Allen back, I absolutely would say go for it. If you're going to tell me we're not going to get either of them back, screw it. Tank, get the pick. There's no point to me in going to the playoffs with Moses Brown as your starting center. You're going to probably get swept anyways. But if it's a couple games here or there, it's hard because I feel like the matchups, like you said, Miami, we've seen Miami beat the Cavs multiple times this season. We saw what they did, a month ago against Miami. I feel like Miami's a very tough matchup. Then you got Boston, who we haven't seen Boston since before Christmas, believe it or not. So that, we haven't seen them. They haven't seen us. We've seen Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown playing out of their minds. But, Boston has basically been the same team, for the last 3-4 years as well, where they get one of these top 4 seeds and they're either out in the second round or sometimes the first round, depending on what matchup it is. We've talked about this all year long. The East is certainly very balanced. Yeah. I mean, it's hard. I know I'm just kind of spitballing here, But, I had said before the year, 13 seed, Kobe Altman potentially on the hot seat, this team having absolutely no direction. And so from that standpoint, as we've talked about a long time, I wrote about this week for my article for Believe One Media. You guys can go check it out. Very impressive what the Cavs have done, from JB Bickerstaff to Kobe Altman to the other coaches to the front office to the players. Over the moon of what this team has done to this point. But I just feel like part of me is just they're out of gas. And maybe next year, we saw it a little bit with Memphis. Nobody expected Memphis to rise in what they did this year when they were barely a playoff team, last year. And to do what they've done this year, and especially without John Morant, is so impressive. The hope is certainly there that the Cavs can be that team, though we've also seen some examples of teams like Atlanta and the Knicks fall back a little bit this year. Obviously, Atlanta's starting to become late. So my other thought is, like, no team is ever the same. There's no guarantee the Cavs are going to be good again next year. There's also no guarantee they're going to be trash. They could be really good. They could be a top 4 seed, or they could, reverberate back to what they've been the last couple of years. I certainly would pick the former. So there's a lot of discussions that we're going to talk about here over the, course of the offseason that I don't think can be answered really today. And I think we just have to wait and see what goes on in these next 2 games.
So to kind of give, where I'm at, the season, and I don't want to put this the wrong way, but the season is a success to me, no matter what happens. I said that they were going to go 500 in that very first podcast, and they're going to be better than 500. They're going to have their first winning season without LeBron James. You have to say that that's a win. It is a win. This team is extremely young. And as much as we have made excuses, you don't want to make an excuse for that, because you do grow throughout the course of a year. But you do have to kind of come back down to earth at a point and go, this team is extremely young. Like I just said, like their oldest starter is 24 years old. You were missing Colin Sexton the entire season. Probably your second biggest offensive threat, next to Darius Garland. And who knows, because, Garland made that huge step in the stardom this year. And was that because of Sexton being out? Or would he have done that anyway? We don't know, but it's something that we could surely find out, come next season. But this team took this massive leap this year. You had Kevin Love, who we talked about would he embrace his bench role? And I'm just kind of going through the podcast in my head now, kind of answering those questions. And the answer was yes. Yes, he absolutely embraced it. And he fell off a little bit the last, maybe 10 games, but like you said, I think that they're out of gas right now, especially missing a lot of players and all the injuries. Kevin Love's actually the one player who I don't think
that was completely different to what he's been the last 3 years. I mentioned this in my article too. After going through everything he went through the last 3 years, not only physically and mentally, he was the one guy that stayed healthy almost all, if not 82 games this year, or 80
right.
games, wherever we're at this point.
Right. So you have Love, who can come off the bench now. It still breaks my heart that Ricky Rubio got hurt, because he was everything to this team, and just gave it everything he had. But he taught a lot to Garland and to these other players. Evan Mobley, even though he's been out the last few games, I still think he's rookie of the year. I think he has. I think that you have to look at not just the numbers, because the numbers are pretty similar, kind of across the board amongst maybe the top 3 guys, which would be Cade Cunningham, Scotty Barnes, and Evan Mobley. And I have Evan Mobley number 1. And the reason is because I think Mobley means more to the Cavs than the other 2 players mean to their teams. I think that, the Raptors are a good team, and Scotty Barnes has had a really good year, but you take Scotty Barnes off of the Raptors, and I think that they're still a playoff team. You take Cade Cunningham, the Pistons have had a terrible record, even though they've beaten the Cavs twice, or is it 2 or 3 times? I don't know. More times than they should have. And but they still have one of the worst records in the league. So Evan Mobley means more to the Cavs than Evan Mobley means more to his team than any other rookie does. And he put up ridiculous numbers, and even numbers that they don't, that they really, they're not the forefront of the stats, like altered shots and contested shots and stuff like that. He's 1 or 2 in the league in those stats. So to me, Evan Mobley's rookie of the year. Kevin Love has a case for 6th man of the year. I don't think he's going to win it. I think that might probably go to Tyler Hero from the Heat, but Love is could be in the conversation for that. Darius Garland could win most improved player. Yeah. I mean, Altman could win GM of the year. Bickerstaff could still win coach of the year because they went from one of the worst teams in the league to, almost a playoff team. There was just a lot of variables to what happened this season. And as angry as I am that they lost to Orlando and they lost these games that they should have won, they're still better than anybody expected them to be. And I promise you, if they're a 7 seed or an 8 seed, whoever the hell they play in the play-in tournament, the Rock is going to be absolutely electric. You're going to hear everyone going absolutely nuts trying to will this team into the playoffs because, like I said, that experience is worth more than the 15th best or the 15th player in the draft. And me and you have talked about this. I don't know if, on the podcast or off. I know we've talked about it off, but I'm not sure about on. In more recent drafts, you've been able to pick up really good players later on in the draft, basically all the way through round 1. You almost, your top few picks are going to be, you're going to hit on a couple of them. Your top 5, you probably expect 3 or 4 of them to be, pretty good players in the league. But you look down the last, 4 or 5 years, and there's players going into the second round that are, either starters or key bench players for a lot of teams. So, yes, that pick could mean something, but for these Cleveland Cavaliers who could potentially get Colin Sexton back next year, the playoff experience is worth more than maybe the 15th overall pick. Play your asses off. Play your hearts out. Go and get that playoff spot. That's what we need. That's what we want. We don't want we have said the play-in tournament. Once we knew that this team was good, we said the play-in tournament was not enough. And I will stick by that. Just because I shouldn't say some of us, I said 500. I thought that they would make the play-in tournament, but we know how good this team can be. So anything below making the actual playoffs, to me, is a losing season. We know how good they can be. Yes, you can make excuses, and yes, they're valid arguments. They are very valid arguments. They're young. They got hurt. If they get Jared Allen back, if they get Evan Mobley back, there is absolutely zero excuses. If they don't, then I understand, okay, it's going to be a lot harder. But this team, we know they're good. We know it. We know that next year they're only going to grow. They got Karis LeVert for another year. If they re-sign Sexton, do you really need that 15th pick in the draft? It's really just spending extra money that you don't need or don't have, really.
So let me throw this at you. Every championship level team has a star win. Whether you're talking about Philly, Milwaukee, Miami, Phoenix, Dallas, Golden State, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I feel, whether it's, again, James Harden, Giannis, Devin Booker, Memphis really doesn't. You could say John Morant, but he's not really a wing. He's more of a star guard. Luka, just going up and down the West, Jimmy Butler, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. So to me, it's like, and you mentioned again, all of these Cavs coming back, LeVert, Sexton potentially. Do you feel that's enough? Because one of my thoughts have been, Do you keep the lottery pick? Do you package up maybe one of a marketing or one of a Levert even, or potentially if he doesn't want to stay here, Sexton, and go get maybe a Bradley Beal if you could pull that off, or how the money would work, or you package or you do something, because I feel like that's the type of piece this team needs. I'm looking at the teams around the league right now, and I feel like the legitimate championship contenders, which in my eyes, again, I know Miami and Boston are the top two seeds right now, and credit to them. But I'm still, if you put a gun to my head, I would still take Milwaukee, and I'd probably still take Philly as my top two teams personally right now. I think this team needs to go get somebody who, outside of Darius Garland, is a star that can create their own shot. Is it Sexton? Potentially. I like Levert. I think he's a really nice player. I don't think he can be your second scoring option on a championship level team. I think it's good for the regular season, but I've told you this multiple times that in the postseason, I think it's all about star power, and I do think it's all about who can get you buckets in key moments. And we've seen it now with JA, and you talked a little bit, even with Levert out there, when when something is not going right, the Cavs just go into ISO ball with Darius Garland, it feels like, and it's hero ball with Garland if he makes the shot or not. They kind of live with it, and I it's hard because I feel like there's a lot that this team can do, but I don't think the final piece to the puzzle is currently on this team, and I think they need to go outside and get them.
So I'm gonna say I don't think that is right at all, and I'm gonna tell you why. You said that you thought that they needed to go get a wing, and then you named a whole bunch of players. I think you named like one actual wing. You said Jason Tatum. James Harden's a shooting guard. Devin Booker's a shooting guard. You said the Warriors, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, point guard, shooting guard. You said Giannis. Giannis literally plays 1 through 5. He doesn't have a set position. You said the Grizzlies. I mean, the Grizzlies have 6 players who basically play shooting guard or small forward. So okay, but you're not talking about a star on that team. That's a team. That's just a bunch of really good, hard-nosed players. Miami, Jimmy Butler is actually plays shooting guard for a lot of the time. He doesn't play small forward. So when you're saying wing, wing is a small forward. A lot of these teams don't have big, Luka might be the only person, but Luka's actually played point guard most of the year. So this is the problem. I don't think you need to bring anyone else in, because you still need to let who you have develop. What is Evan Mobley going to be? That's a big question. And I think that that's an answer that was Giannis as dominant as he is right now his first year in the league? No. Not even close. Evan Mobley might be having a better year than Giannis did his first year in the league. I don't know if you want to look it up and see what his numbers were, but I can tell you that it wasn't. I don't think it's anywhere near where he is now. Evan Mobley could be the answer. I mean, he certainly has all the potential in the world. He's 7 feet tall. He can make ridiculous shots. He can hit the three when he takes them. He just doesn't take them very often. He needs to get more aggressive. But the kid has, I mean, he's probably going to win Rookie of the Year, on top of the fact that he still has the highest potential of anyone in this draft. So if you were going to package Sexton, you would have to actually re-sign him, because he is a restricted free agent at the end of the year. And then let's assume that we don't make the playoffs, and then you package that number 1 pick with Colin Sexton. Is that going to be enough for someone to part with a star? And then you would have to also, don't forget, we have to sign Darius Garland to a max contract. And you're talking about Bradley Beal. Well, we're going to take on his $40 million too, or 35, $40 million. I mean, we would have to try and get rid of Kevin Love. So then now you're messing with the bench. Now you're turning this team into something, a lot of the things that made it so successful this season, you're taking away on the hopes that it's going to push them even further. But I just think that we have great players. We have Darius Garland, who took that first leap to stardom. We traded for Karis LeVert, someone who we all said we wanted. You, myself, a bunch of people in Believeland media, even our owner Kevin. Kevin wanted Karis LeVert just like me and you did from the very rip, and we got him. It just took a while for him to get settled into this offense, and once he did, you've seen the last few games. Maybe last, week and a half, he's been playing really well. And, he had his injury right after we got him. So that was obviously a concern that he was going to, he is injury prone. You have Lauri Markkanen, who I think is as solid as they come. I think that you probably have a better chance of someone, like you said, someone taking Markkanen, or packaging Sexton and Markkanen if you have to with the first round pick and seeing what you can get from that. But I wouldn't do that. I think that everyone's so young. You got to let them grow. You got to let them develop into who they're going to be. Jared Allen, in my opinion, is the second best center in the East next to the MVP, who I think the MVP is Joel Embiid. Yes, I think that Bam Adebayo is a great center. I think that you can name a bunch of great centers in the East, and this is me not being biased at all. I think there's great centers in the East. I think Jared Allen is the second best center in the Eastern Conference. I think Evan Mobley could be a generational talent. He needs time. He needs to learn. He needs to go to Hakeem Olajuwon's camp that he does in the offseason. Darius Garland's only going to get better. He's only 21, 22 years old. Isaac Okoro has been showing flashes of this three lately that I'm just like, oh my God, like just go to a gym, sit in the corner and shoot threes for 16 hours a day, because we know he can slash to the rim too. This team is set up for success long-term because of their youth, and they're only going to get better. So to go out and get someone, I just don't think is the answer. I think the answer is you play the game, you play your heart out, win, lose, or draw. You had your first winning season without LeBron. No, there's no moral victories. I don't believe in them. You know that. I've said that many podcasts. If you guys don't agree with me, go ahead and tweet at me, and we can have a nice conversation about it. But at the end of the day, the Cavs did have their first winning season without LeBron. Again, I've said that like 3 or 4 times this podcast, because it does mean something. We are past the LeBron era. We are into the new era. The young Cavs, this great team that is only going to get better with time. So if we have that, like I said, if we don't make the playoffs, we have that first round pick, great. I say that you see who's available and you either go out and get them, or if you do want to make a trade for someone that's not going to cost a lot of money, go for it. But I wouldn't mess too much with the core. We only have one more year of Kevin Love. I don't know if the Cavs are going to retain him, but that's $32 million off the books, or around that. Come after next season, you might even be able to trade him mid-season too. Next year might be a value to another team. Who knows? I don't want to get into that right now. All I'm saying is they got their last 2 games that we got coming up are against the Brooklyn Nets, who obviously very scary, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and the Milwaukee Bucks. So you look at those 2 games, we don't know if the Bucks are going to rest players. They might, but you play to win the game, to quote Herm Edwards. And that's how you could do. This team can do it. I think that I'm praying they get Evan Mobley back. Maybe we learn a little bit more about J.A. And, if we don't make it, okay, we had a good season. They took it as far as they could. Injuries got the best of them. We still got our lottery pick. We'll see what happens, and we'll move on from there. Still a winning season. I can't complain. It was a fun season. You make the playoffs, great. Now they get playoff experience. They get they're gonna do the best they can against whatever team they play. Hopefully they play hard. Hopefully we will have Allen back by then and Mobley back by then. And we can give whoever we play a run for their money, maybe win. Who knows? You don't know. So there's a lot of unknowns, but at the end of the day, I'm going to say this. I enjoyed this season. They proved that we were able to move out of LeBron's shadow into this new era of Cavs basketball. And whether we get someone, whether we don't, it doesn't matter, because the people that we have, the players that we have, are going to get better. It's not like we have a team that's 30, 31, 32, and we're looking around going, oh my God. We got this young team that's only going to get better the more they play with each other, only going to get better because they're still learning, and they still had a winning season. As Cleveland Cavaliers fans, we could not have asked for anything better. So that's my take on the season, and we'll see how it finishes out.
So, and I think it's worth emphasizing again for the final time. This could be the first year in my lifetime. Again, I was born in 1998, so that was 23 years ago, almost 24. So this will be the first year in my lifetime, if the Cavs do make one of the 7 or 8 spots, that they will make the playoffs without that man that voted for Hollywood 4 years ago on our roster. So for me, it's been a different kind of experience because, again, I was born in 1998, but really didn't start watching basketball until I was 6 or 7. So you take that, probably didn't start basketball until like 2006, maybe 2007, the year the Cavs lost to the Spurs and got swept in the NBA Finals. So in my lifetime, the Cavs have either been perennial NBA Finals contenders or they have been basement bottom dwellers. There have been really no in between. We're like, they're a 6 seed, they're a 7 seed, they're an 8 seed. So this year has been different for me. And I am, again, I'm not used to it. I'm used to, baseball team being good, bad in between, used to football team being good, bad in between, not used to it in basketball. So it's been an adjustment for me, trying to learn what it's like to not tank for a lottery pick and not compete for an NBA championship. And so on that matter, yes, and you have said it, I have enjoyed this season a lot more than I would have ever thought. I thought by this time of the podcast, we'd be sitting here thinking to ourselves, why are we watching a team getting destroyed by 20 points every night? And that has not been the case. There was part of me that was thinking, last night against Orlando, well, that was kind of what I thought this season was going to turn into at the end of the year. But the fact of the matter is, like you said, injuries have happened. And again, it's just going to depend. That's why it's really hard today to give you guys a definitive answer of like, this is what we think the Cavs are going to do. This is what we think. We're confident they're going to win the play-in tournament. We're confident they can match up in the postseason because we really don't know what we have. And it's been tough on, I think, not only the coaching staff, but I think on the players too. And you've seen this a little bit with the rotation. We've seen Jetty Osman go out a couple games. We've seen Dylan Windler come in. We even saw Ed Davis come in for a few minutes the other night. We just saw Rondo getting back. So there are a lot of moving parts here, something you really don't want to have a week before the play-in tournament and the playoffs are supposed to begin, which is why, man, I mean, it's just tough because even if they do get these guys back, the hope is like, okay, if we do get Mobley back, let's say not J.A., but let's say we get Mobley back, the hope is, he can come right in and make an impact. And I think you are going to feel that. But also it might take a game or two to adjust, get your legs back underneath you. Again, Rondo just getting back now, like Rondo didn't play for, 11 games and just starting, we saw a little bit last night of Rondo and Darius Garland playing a little bit together, just getting out there and trying to find the right lineup. Because as we've talked about many times on this podcast, there really hasn't been a set lineup all season outside of the starting five when they were healthy. You know, we knew for the most part it was Garland, Okoro, Market, and Mobley Allen. That was set in stone with Kevin Love and Jetty Osman being your two catalysts coming off the bench. And then Rondo came in and Lamar Stevens ordered here and there. And since these guys have gone down over the last month, there has been no really set rotation where you know, like, okay, this guy's going to play this many minutes a night and this guy's going to come in at this time, because they don't know, because there's so many missing parts. And I think that's another factor that we haven't really touched on today. But I think, you know, again, not really knowing your role that we've talked a little bit on throughout the season, because there's so many moving parts. That's why I think this team is just like, okay, I never really played a lot. You know, even Levert. Okay, I haven't really played a lot with Garland since I got here. They're just figuring it out on the go, and they're doing it in the middle of the biggest crunch time of the season.
Yeah, I mean, J.A. getting hurt, Mobley getting hurt, literally in the worst time of the season. Now they're scrambling to try and figure out, you know, who can step up. You know, I think Lamar Stevens has done a great job. I would love to see Lamar Stevens come back. Great bench player, high energy. But like you said, you know, Levert didn't have that much time between him getting hurt and you know, basically JB trying to figure out the rotation. It just seemed like nothing was really clicking. And then, you know, then Allen gets hurt, and that, you know, has to put Mobley in a different mindset. Then Mobley gets hurt, and then we got to, you know, put Love in the starting rotation, and Chetty kind of fell off the wagon a little bit, went into the doghouse. The end of the season has been rough. And it makes me think, you know, well, would we be where we're at if we were 100% healthy? I think the answer is no. I think that we would be a 5 seed, a 4 seed if we were 100% healthy. And that is kind of the downside of it, because that stinks. It's awful to have to think that way and go, we are in the play-in tournament because we got hurt, not because we weren't good enough. Even with as young as these guys are, like I've said, and they're only going to get better, we're good enough this year to make the playoffs without having to do the play-in tournament. So,
and here's why it hurts to me more, because as I said very early in today's podcast, you never know what next season's going to bring. You know, it's like we don't know if this team is going to get back to the, we hope and we think, but we never know. I think a great example this year was the Knicks. You know, the Knicks, they were a 4 seed this year. They completely fell off. Atlanta was a 5 seed, made the Eastern Conference Finals. They're going to make the play-in tournament, just like where the Cavs are now. And they, you know, outside of John Collins, they really didn't have any significant injuries. And they pretty much brought back the same team and got off to such a slow start. So again, we hope that this team is going to be where they're at, you know, this time next year and better in position. But you just never know, which is why every year you got to take advantage of every opportunity you get.
I mean, it's true, but I think that once you prove that you're good enough, it's a lot easier than when you're still one of the bottom teams in the league. So I think making the jump this year, it's going to be very hard to say, okay, the Cavs are not going to make the playoffs next year, when they're going to be literally bringing every single person back. And I'm excluding Colin Sexton from that, because we don't know if they're bringing him back, but they didn't really have him they had him for 11 games this year, and they were still a phenomenal team. So
I mean, if they do bring back Sexton next year, I have to be again, who knows? To me, it's like we really don't know. I would put it at 50-50 if he's back or not. But if he is back, it's almost like adding a free agent in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, I know, like everybody has said, he's out, you know, he's been out, they missed him, and I'm like, well, he's been out the whole year. And the Cavs were a game back of that number 1 seed when he only played 11 games this year. So, you know, not saying that he's the prime, you know, we're not saying, you know, he's the primary reason. Could he be the missing piece? Who knows? But at the end of the day, It's where the Cavs are at. And amazingly, we played 80 games and we've won 43 games. They've exceeded your expectations. I know you thought they were going to sneak into the play-in tournament. I think it shows more of how much better the East is than we both thought, that they're at 43 games and they're barely hanging on here, to the 7-8 seed. I would have thought 43 games would have got them a top 6 seed at least going into the season. But again, it's one of those things where you just never know. And, we're going to play these last 2 games and, we'll see what happens.
Let me ask you this question. So you said earlier in the podcast, you said that the team seems gassed, and they do. And there's been a lot of games where it's like, it just seems like if they had one more player who could provide energy, who could give you offense. Does that not sound like Colin Sexton? That might have been the difference between, what are we for 43 right now?
Yeah.
That might be an extra 10 wins with the games that were very close or that just got away. That might be the difference between the number one seed and where we're at now. Is we just needed that extra energy, that extra offense, a couple of more buckets, and we weren't getting it from guys that aren't, we weren't getting it from Okoro because he's not offensive minded. Yeah. We're not getting it from Chetty Osman because he's a better bench player. Colin Sexton is someone who averaged 20 points for, I think, the last 3 years, 2 years. But as we
talked about, is there a ripple effect on Garland though? Does Garland give you the production to get in that position if Sexton is the guy? Because we saw, as we've talked about many, it felt like Garland kind of took off the minute Sexton went out.
So here's my only knock I'm going to give you on Darius Garland, okay? And I've been thinking a lot about this as well. Darius Garland, he looks to pass just as much as he looks to shoot. But what has been the two biggest problems with this team this year? We know one of them.
Free throw shooting.
And what's the other one?
My guess would be, let's see, free throw. You said the 2 biggest problems. Free throw shooting is one of them. My second would be probably production scoring wise, right?
No. Turnovers. We give the ball away so much. And if you want to throw a third in there, it'd be offensive rebounds. But that's also, that's been since, Allen's been out. But they've been giving up offensive rebounds all year. But the Cavs have been awful with turnovers. You take someone like Sexton, he's a shoot first player. That's that offense that we need. Now, I'm not going back because I said we could have packaged Sexton and traded him and this, that, and the other thing. But at the end of the day, if we had him and we had LeVert, I don't think we would be gassed and we would still have that offensive firepower. And that could be the difference between a lot of games that we lost and a win.
I don't know if Sexton's healthy. I don't know if they even make the LeVert trade. I mean, again, who knows? Maybe Sexton, maybe he kind of does the LeVert-like role where you kind of feel like you don't need that extra wing because he is providing, the extra scoring punch or something. It's a lot of unknowns and it's hard because, again, it would be a podcast for the off season. When we're sitting here in August and it's like, there's not a lot of news going on in the NBA. Let's talk what ifs here.
I agree.
But it's really, really interesting discussion.
We'll do an entire podcast like Marvel what ifs, but just with Cavaliers.
All right. Well, speaking of what ifs, what if these last 2 games here? We got 2 games to go. We got Brooklyn on Friday night in the Barclays Center, as well as the Bucks. That will be Sunday tip-off, 3:30 p.m. The NBA did announce it. It was originally TBD. They announced it for 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time in the Fieldhouse. The 41st and last potential home game, hopefully not, of the Cavaliers season. Man, I gotta tell you again, it's hard to preview because we don't know the Milwaukee game, especially. I do feel like that they will lose to Brooklyn. Milwaukee, it kind of feels like if they rest their players or not. If they do, they'll win. If not, they'll lose. And then it'll be based on fate. Whoever we play, like you said, go out there and try your best. But I don't know if they're going to try to manipulate who they play or not.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think they lose to Brooklyn. Brooklyn's not resting. They're gonna play. They're gonna lose to Brooklyn, and we beat Brooklyn before. I'm just without Allen, without Mobley, we lose. It's just as simple as that. I like to think that we could put up a good fight. Maybe there's a chance we squeak out a win. I'm not being super pessimistic about it. I'm just spitting facts right now. And again, like you said, if the Bucks rest their players, I think that we can get a win against the Bucks. So I'll say realistically 1-1. I'll say my heart's telling me 2-0 because they really want these last two games. But I think realistically we're looking at 1-1. So we'll come back next week, talk about what's going on, and that's where we're at. The Cavs, heck of a season. We still got 2 more to go, and then we're gonna get fired up. Gonna get really excited for this play-in tournament. We're gonna will this team into the playoffs and see if they can do any damage. Hopefully, we get back Jared Allen. Hopefully, we get back Evan Mobley, and we'll see what this team is made of. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel again with you, if the Bucks rest, they will go 1-1. If they do play their starters, I do think the Cavs will go 0-2. And again, I know today kind of feels that we're in a little bit of a damper, sad mood because of everything that's happened over the last couple of weeks. But I think it's just realistic expectations. We've kind of talked here all year long. Fact of the matter is, no matter what, it's been an incredible ride. I have been incredibly blessed to sit here with you 24 weeks. That's a long time. 6 months, 24 weeks. The season absolutely flew. We both missed one podcast. This is probably our 24th together, 25 overall. It's been absolutely amazing. We will be here with you for the play-in tournament and all of the playoff coverage. And let's face it, the playoffs technically start next week, even though the play-in tournament don't count for stats of any reason. Don't get me started on that of the NBA. But the fact of the matter is, we are on the road to the play-in tournament. Words I did not expect to say at the start of episode number 1, and for that, you got to call this season a success.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a heck of a ride this season, starting with podcast number 1 all the way till right now. I'm not in a sad mood. I'm actually more pissed off than I am sad. So I'm just trying to keep myself level-headed because I don't want to yell at the Cavaliers, because there's all the circumstances that's surrounding the team right now. But you should never lose to Orlando, and we did. And I'm keeping my anger in very, very wisely because of that. But you guys, I want to give a big shout out right now to some of our other podcasts, Den of Dogs with Ruben, with Clarence. Guys, check them out. They've had some amazing shows. They just had a great show with a great guest, and a lot of big things happening for the Cleveland Browns. Check them out, guys. Check out Mel and Max on Guardians of the CLE. If you don't know, earlier in the day, Jose Ramirez just signed a 5-year deal to stay with the Cleveland Guardians. And man, love to have Jose on the team for a long time. So check out Mel and Max on Guardians of the CLE. Check out Josh and the other Brandon L. and all the great people over at Joe, everyone at BelievelandMediaLLC.com. Check out all the great articles we have up. Everyone's working their butts off trying to keep you up to date. We got our brand new podcast, The Pile Driver, for all your wrestling needs. I know me and Brandon talked a lot about WrestleMania. So love working for this company, love doing this podcast. Can't wait to see what happens in the next few weeks. Hopefully when the playoffs, we'll get a couple more can get a couple more weeks, and if not, then right into the off season and see what happens. But Brandon, always a pleasure. Always have a blast, and I think there's only one thing left to do.
Let 'em know.